Six Nations Show on OTB Sports Radio.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.
It's spinning! It's spinning!
Updates, analysis and opinion across all OTB channels from start to finish.
Gone on it! I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports Radio.
All right, you're welcome along to the Six Nations Show. Nathan with you this evening, and I'm delighted to be joined by two Grand Slam winners ahead of what could well be a potential Grand Slam decider when we look back on the Six Nations. Fiona Hayes, good afternoon.
Hi Nathan, how are things?
And Tommy Bowe, how are you?
Nathan, how are you? Great, thanks.
All right, so no doubt about the big story. We just heard his voice there, and he might as well spend the afternoon with us and off the ball, because he ain't going to be going to Paris. There'll be no repeat of Le Drop. Johnny Sexton ruled out of the game against France on Saturday. I think most people just skimmed through the starting 15 when it came out and went, oh, that's fine, and then suddenly went, whoa, wait a second. Where is Johnny Sexton's name? He picked up a hamstring injury thing, so should be fine potentially to come back in for the Italy match. It means that Joey Carbery wins his 31st cap on Saturday, but remarkably his first Six Nations start at out half, and partners Jamison Gibson Park at half back. The rest of the team is on change, so it is a back three of Hugo Keenan at full back with Mac Hansen and Andre Conway on the wings. James Ryan will captain the side in Sexton's absent. He's joined at lock by Tyg Byrne. The back row sees Caelan Doris at 6, Josh van der Fleer at 7 and Jack Conan at 8, with Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher and Tyg Furlong in the front row. Two lines coming onto the bench in Ian Henderson and Robbie Henshaw, and also Jack Carty, who should get his first game time under Andy Farrell in Paris in that 4:45 kickoff at the Stade de France. Everyone's sort of digesting this news, Tommy, still, that Johnny Sexton isn't going to be there, and wondering, is it a blessing in disguise that finally Joey Carbery is going to get that first start?
I gather behind the scenes in French camp there's massive uproar and huge confusion because they don't know who to cheap shot anymore. Their whole week's planning of what are we going to do? How are we going to hit him off the ball? And all of a sudden that is ripped to pieces. So, certainly a good way to keep France on their toes. Well, Sean and Edwards will not know what to do.
There is an element of truth in that, though, isn't there? Because Ireland's game plan, so much of it is built around Johnny Sexton.
Yeah, listen, stop Johnny Sexton and you'll stop Ireland. That has been the way it's been in the last couple of months, 100%. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Andy Farrell wasn't going to drop Johnny Sexton. This probably had to happen for this Irish team. I believe that we have to see, we're a year and a half out from a World Cup. We have to see how we can cope without our star man, Johnny Sexton. He has been the key to this team for the last number of years. But you look at the strength and depth in this Irish side. We have got incredible strength and depth, really, really exciting from in all positions, bar two, and that would be in tight head prop, where we have the world-class Tyg Furlong, but I don't believe we really have the strength and depth that we need in that position, and of course Johnny Sexton as well. So there's been a lot of talk about Joey Carbery. He's coming back from injury. Will he be the man? Will he be the successor of Johnny Sexton? He's done well in the last few chances he's got, but yeah, the jury's going to be out. This is going to be his first start in a Six Nations, and what an opportunity for him, but also a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
We are all going to be guilty, Fiona, of analysing the performance of Joey Carbery, probably by the result, and whether or not he is the man to take Ireland forward after Johnny Sexton on the back of one game. He's not Johnny Sexton, though. We know this from discussing it for 5 years at this stage. What difference do you think it will make to the Irish game plan with Joey Carbery at 10 compared to Johnny Sexton?
I think Farrell's going to stick to his game plan. I mean, he's spoken in the press conference. They're a squad. I'm sure they're all rotating in training. He's got players in. I mean, we know Johnny. We know he's probably capable of getting injured as is any other player on the squad. So you've got to be back in your system, and I think the coaching team will definitely be back in that system. It's such a great time for Carbery to get in there. It's probably going to be one of the biggest games of the Six Nations, away to a French team that are playing some beautiful beautiful rugby. I think we will see maybe a different style. We mightn't see as much kicking from Conway. We might see, a lot more of the box kick, I would imagine, or chasing wingers from that. But it's definitely, we can see him. We know the way he likes to play. He's expansive. He plays on the gain line. He loves dinking that ball in behind. So I'm excited for the game. I think it's what is needed. It's needed for this next World Cup. I hate speaking about it. People are like, don't talk about the World Cup. You'll jinx this team. But I think it's what needed. We know what Johnny can deliver, and now it's a chance away to France. Joey has this age, and we're all looking at him, and it's going to be an exciting game.
Even in terms of the next 2-3 days is perfect preparation, Tommy, for the World Cup, because everybody expects Johnny Sexton, fitness permitting, to still be there and be the first choice number 10. But this situation is exactly what you try and prepare for on a Wednesday before a World Cup quarter-final. As has happened previously, suddenly you get the call. You got to be able to respond. You got to get your preparation right. You have to have it condensed into 48 hours and still be able to perform. So it is a perfect dry run for Joey Carbery.
It is a perfect dry run. Listen, I think he'd prefer maybe an easier match than having his first start in the Stade de France. You know, I've been over there before. I've had a great game, one that I really enjoyed, but I've also had an absolute howler. And that is not a place that you want to go out there feeling, not quite 100%. But listen, Joey Carbery, he's a big game player. He's shown that at the biggest stage with Munster, with Ireland, with Leinster in the past too. It's this game plan that Ireland are starting to play at the minute. It's really, really exciting. And the way the likes of Bundy Aki is stepping up as first receiver, Tyke Byrne stepping up first receiver, Tyke Furlong, pulling that ball back, it gives the out half an extra bit of chance, because we know that France, they're going to blitz up. We have Sean Edwards there. He made his name out of this blitz defence. So will he be able to play with that little bit of depth, to be able to read the right opportunity, to hit the right pass, to go over the top, to dink it in behind. So yeah, a brilliant opportunity. But it's going to be a tough challenge for him. But from Andy Farrell's point of view, he has to test him. We have to know, is Joey Carbery the right man to succeed Johnny Sexton? And we're not going to know that unless he gets opportunities. So personally, I think it's a great opportunity for him. If he goes well, hopefully he'll start against Italy as well. And then, I wouldn't mind looking at it as we go forward. Joey Carbery start matches with Johnny Sexton coming off to finish them as time goes on, because you have to remember Johnny Sexton, he is 36. He doesn't look like a 36-year-old. He's not playing like a 36-year-old. But if you're talking about the World Cup, it is 30. He will be 38 at that stage, and you're going to have to try and manage him through that period.
Is it easier, Tommy, for Joey Carbery to come into a Andy Farrell side than a Joe Schmidt side? It feels as though there's maybe a little bit less structure. There's a bit more freedom for a Joey Carbery, and the way he likes to play the game is maybe better suited actually to what Farrell's doing than what Schmidt would have been doing.
Yeah, 100%. It absolutely seems that this type of style of rugby, the structure that they have in place, the style of rugby that they're playing 100% would suit a Joey Carbery style game plan. So yeah, if you kind of think about it, the Leinster game plan that would have been there when Leo Cullen came in as well still had Joe Schmidt written all over it. The style of rugby that they played early on, and when Stuart Lancaster came in, would still have the bones of what Joe Schmidt had implemented in there. And that's where Joey Carbery didn't really fit in, that Stuart Lancaster felt that he was more of a fullback than an out half, and that's why they were happy enough to release him to go to Munster to give him that opportunity to play as an out half. So yeah, maybe that old style wasn't really for him, where this is a clean slate. They're playing some really exciting rugby. They seem to be just be able to play with that little bit more freedom, a bit more expression, and no better man to run that than Joey Carbery.
Fiona, it's only the second time that Joey Carbery and Jamison Gibson Park have started together out as the out-half partnership, and quite often when Carbery's been there, Conor Murray has also been there, and so Conor Murray takes on that leadership role. Now there's two players, and I say inexperienced, like Joey Carbery's not a kid. We still sort of think about him as being 21. He is on his 31st cap, and he's been around for it's 5 years since Soldier Field at this stage. But from a Sexton and a Murray to a Carbery and a Gibson Park, who's the leader of those two?
I think you have to say Gibson Park, with the way he's been playing, he's commanding. I think in that Irish shirt, when he came on board at the start, I was very unsure about him. And in the last few international games, he's just bringing that speed at ruck time. He's picking out the passes. He's putting it on a plate for the out halves, and he's also getting it into the forward hand. And Tommy talked about that pullback. Takes a lot of pressure off the 10. And when you have forwards that can stand up as that first receiver, that also have the hands to pull it out the back to maybe hitting a 12 line or 13. So I think Gibson Park has definitely been someone that has stood up and he's taken ownership. And I think he's played the last few games he was there against New Zealand. I think he'll be on with Joey, and he'll be saying to him, look, I'm gonna put it out here. The two will work together. But I think Gibson Park's going to take over and definitely be the one that's going to shine through as the leader out of the two on the day and take the pressure off him. I'm sure there is a lot of pressure. He hasn't obviously played as many games as we'd like in the lead up to this game, but he's spoken today about how he's mentally ready, physically ready, and I think he's there, and all the guys are going to be around him and definitely be there to take that pressure off him.
It's definitely one I'm looking forward to seeing, actually, Nathan, because Gibson Park, since he has come in, he has had front foot ball, he's had clean ball at the base. Every match, Ireland have had 60-70% possession in all those games. The pack really haven't been dominated, and they haven't been on the back foot. You think of that New Zealand match, Ireland were all over them, really. Argentina was the same, Japan the same, Wales, of course, last weekend the same. So this is going to be a real challenge for Gibson Park to be on a pack that you would have to think that the Irish pack, they're doing well to get parity against that. You know, those French forwards are so big. So I'm not having Johnny Sexton outside him to boss him, to be that leader on his shoulder all the time. It's going to be a big challenge for him. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes.
I saw Fabien Galtier saying today about the replacements, and Ireland need to be prepared for a hungry replacement front five on Saturday. But looking at that Irish replacements bench, like, there's 5 lines on that Irish replacements bench. So Cian Healy, with all his experiences there. Ian Henderson is coming back in alongside Robbie Henshaw. You still have all the experience of Peter O'Mahony and Conor Murray. It is a massively experienced Irish bench. The decision, Tommy, to not bring Henshaw back in, is that just basic good management, that Aki and Ringshaw played so well that you can't just change because Robbie Henshaw is the line, because he may have been first in line ahead of the Six Nations regardless of fitness, that you got to reward players when they turn up on big days?
Yeah, you got to reward players who are playing on form. There's no doubt about it. Robbie he's playing some incredible rugby. The last 12 months has probably been the best rugby of his career. Over in the Lions, he really excelled. The autumn, he really excelled. He's playing some brilliant stuff. But of course, he picked up that injury and gave the opportunity to Bundee Aki to come in. And we know that the two of them, you know, it's been such a battle whenever they're both fit. We never really get to see Bundee, Robbie and Gary Ringrose all fit together, all fighting for that position. So that can only bring out the best of both of them. So listen, I'm not surprised that Bundee gets a shot again. I thought he was exceptional last weekend. And I think certainly for a guy to get a bit of go forward, the way he stepped up to first receiver, he can give that little dink pass on his shoulder. He can pull it out the back. But I would say a lot of the time he's going to have to just truck it up and try and get Ireland over the gain line this weekend. So yeah, I couldn't see, I would have been very surprised to see Robbie Henshaw come straight in at 12. But great experience, as you said, on the bench, having him there. I'm not too sure about, like, it is great to have so many Lions on the bench. I think to see Ian Henderson come back, I'm not surprised with that. I think he adds that little bit of bulk. I just think Cian Healy, you compare some of the size of the French guys to come off the bench, and you're kind of thinking France are going to have to try and squeeze Ireland. They're going to squeeze them in the scrum. They're going to squeeze them in the maul. And for Ireland, it's easy to make those out the back passes and to carry and to look great whenever you're on the front foot all the time. But if they're tired, that they've done a lot of scrummage and a lot of driving mauls, you know, held into rucks, it's not going to be quite as easy for them. So it's going to be a tough one for the likes of Finlay Bealham and Cian Healy coming off that bench. It's
obviously a very different pack. It's a very different scenario to the All Blacks game, Fiona. But Ireland in that game, it's 72% possession, 75% territory. They may not get to those levels, but should we be actually focusing more on what Ireland can do in terms of stopping the French, getting a strangled hold on the game, or actually do we just need to look and say this is going to Paris? It's a very different challenge from anything they face on this run.
I think it's a completely different challenge that they face. I mean, I watched the France-Italy game. You know, you might say France were asleep, maybe physically anyway, for maybe the first 20 minutes. But by God, when they pulled it out of the bag, they just got go forward ball. And it's for me, I think where we're going to defence-wise, that internal defence is going to say a lot. That's where they made a lot of meters. And I know I watched the Wales game, and I was looking at the Irish defence thinking it's absolutely amazing. Their line speed, they were up the tackles, chop tackles, killing the ball at source. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this against a French team, because I think Wales were just a different team than we'd seen in the past. They weren't quite as physical as we've seen them. We know France are at home. They're going to be exceptionally up for this game. They've gotten that Italian game out of the way. As I said, the coach spoke afterwards that maybe they hadn't played enough rugby together, and that was it. And now they seem to be taken away. So I'm excited. I mean, you're looking at that front row battle. For me, it's going to be seeing how long we can get Furlong and Porter on that pitch to stay on that pitch, because they had 100% scrum success rate last week. I think the French lost one scrum against Italy. Baye against Furlong, Antonio against Porter. They're going to be the real battles, and I think that set piece is going to be so exciting to watch. And those mauls especially, I mean, you have Aldrich off the back of that, but I am very, very impressed with the Irish back row as well, and I think they're going to bring a lot to this game. I know that France have made a change in their back row, but I really think our back row is up there with one of the best in the world at the minute.
And that will probably be the winning and losing of the game, Tommy, because that will influence how much of the ball Antoine Dupont gets and how much ball he gets in broken play and in open play. And Ron Nogar was on OTB AM this morning talking about that. Look, it's an obvious thing. He's maybe the best player in the world right now. You need to stop him getting possession. He didn't look quite at his best last week. I understand that, you know, there's an attitude in France maybe against Italy. They're generally quite sloppy in that game, but there was very little that was coming off from, particularly in the first half when the game was still a little bit in the melting pot.
Yeah, I don't share Fiona's same excitement whenever she talks about the driving mauls, that's for sure. Looking forward to seeing those mauls. But yeah, I think that Dupont certainly wasn't the same world-class player that we would normally see against Italy. But when do Ireland ever play amazing against Italy? We always see that little bit of unstructure. It's a really difficult match playing against Italy, I know, because everybody expects you to go and put 40, 50 points on them. But you have to take it into account that Italy are going out there to front up and to try and frustrate things. And certainly they did that at stages in the match last weekend. But we all know exactly how class Dupont is. We know how amazing Aldred is at the back of that scrum, back of that maul. And Tamak as well. I mean, they're star-studded side. They're really, really exciting. What I thought was really interesting, I listened to that Ron O'Gara interview and him talking about Anthony Foley and saying, whenever you play against France, get them to the ground. Make sure you chop tackle them, smother the ball, don't let them offload. And that is something that we've seen from this French side as of late. They don't go to ground. They're offloading all over the place. You have incredible offloaders and big men who can kind of get their arms over people's shoulders, and that is where Dupont and Tamak just come alive. You know, it's that unstructured play. So from an Irish point of view, they have to try and match up to them physically, but at the same time, they can't just be afraid to just try and hold them up and let them get their offloads. They have to slow down the ball. So that's a huge challenge for the likes of Josh van der Fleer, Jack Conan, Caelan Doris, to try and get into those rucks, slow down the ball, smother that ball, and just get them a little bit, on the back foot.
And Fiona, on that, like, Ireland are so good at holding players up in the tackle. We saw the success that they had time and time again against Wales with that. Would you go along with Tommy and with Ronan that actually it's a different tack if you want to slow down this French attack?
Absolutely. You're not going to be holding a lot of those French boys up. They're absolutely huge. I think you're focusing on a different area. And as Tommy said, you have these guys in there trying to kill the ball at ruck. I mean, Ireland gave away 6 penalties only last week. I think the French had 14 penalties. So it's an area they're going to have to look at slowing down that ball, but doing so illegally. So I'm sure they'll study, what the referee will and will give away. So it's almost like an art trying to learn what you can get away with inside there. But it's definitely going to be a chop tackle, try and kill that ball. You do not want the French playing off the cuff. When they play off the cuff, all systems go out the window. They try anything. We know what Dupont, we've seen that try last year where Intimac, where he ran it from inside his own dead goal line. So for me, it's going to be about that penalty area, that discipline, trying to slow down the French, but doing so legally is how we get away with stuff.
This is the Six Nations show. All our rugby and off the ball is with Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. Fiona Hayes and Tommy Bowe are with us. The Sexton injury is probably just taken over all the build-up, Tommy. But we should be bloody excited about this, about going to Paris, the two strongest teams in the competition, at a time when there's no real fear of going to Paris. Like when you were starting off with Ireland, it was a Brian O'Driscoll hat-trick or nothing, and Ireland had little or no success. Whereas the last decade, 6 wins for Ireland, 3 wins for France, a couple of draws. Ireland have won in the Stade de France on a couple of occasions as well. There's nothing mentally, you would think, about Ireland going to Paris anymore where there's any fear factor.
I don't know about you, Nathan. I'm not that worried. I can't wait for the game. Johnny Sexton is out, but we're going to have to learn how to deal with that. Ireland, it's incredible to think that France have not won a Six Nations in well over a decade. If you think of the success that they've had and the strength of the players that these squads have had and their club side. So it is really exciting from a Six Nations point of view to see that France are competitive again. It brings such an excitement to it for Irish teams and all teams to go over to Stade de France and know that we're going to be given a huge test, and we could be looking at a winner takes all between the two sides. So I'm very excited about it. I think that this Irish side are well used to, there's no players in that team who are not used to going over to France and winning with their club side. A lot of that side will have played for Ireland and won away from home in France, or those who haven't, they haven't really been involved in the squad for that long. So we're in a great position. We're playing some brilliant rugby. There's a lot of confidence out there. And seeing Joey Carbery coming in, what an opportunity for him. And for Jack Carty as well. To think that this is Jack Carty's first chance in an Ireland jersey since the World Cup. The poor guy has been playing so well for Connacht, couldn't get a look in. And his first chance is to go and play in the Stade de France. I mean, what a baptism of fire that's going to be for him if he can come on. But hopefully, you mentioned about Johnny Sexton and Le Drop. How amazing would it be to see Jack Carty coming on and landing Le Drop to get Ireland that win?
We would all take it. I think we would all take it right now.
I bet you he would.
That is for sure. A lot's been spoken about Jack Carty and his performances, but also one of the real pluses for Jack Carty is the leadership role he has in that Connacht side as well. I mean, if it is a 15-20 minutes, if it's already set in stone that on the hour mark Joey Carbery's coming off and Jack Carty's coming on, it does feel he's in a different place. Even listening to his interviews, he's in a very different place from where he was with the World Cup.
Yeah, the World Cup was very new to him. He kind of got thrown into that system as well, and he just didn't look comfortable at that World Cup. He never really did. And of course, with that Japan game, the Russia game, it just didn't seem to go well for him. So I hope that he carries the confidence that we've seen from him in the Connacht jersey over the last 2 years. That he seems to really elevate it. He seems to have put those negative thoughts behind him, and boy, he's a big game player. Anytime Connacht play against Leinster, he is always the standout player. So we know he's got it in him. He is a quality operator. He can run the back line, but he can also light it up himself. So we've got 2 really exciting out halves. I hope for Jack Carty's sake it goes really well for him if he does come off the bench, because if people are talking about Joey Carbery as a successor, we have no idea who's the successor to Joey Carbery, because we've had Jack Carty, we've had Ross Byrne, we've had Billy Burns, we've had Harry Byrne, and we need to nail down these people. Where are they sitting in the pecking order? If they're called upon, can they take their opportunities? So huge opportunity for Joey Carbery, but also Jack Carty if he comes off the bench, and I'm delighted to see him getting another run.
You talk about the pecking order there, Tommy. Like we almost need the players, Carbery and Carty and that long list of names we went through, to get away from that pecking order angle as well, because I'm sure what Andy Farrell wants is not Joey Carbery to want to be number 2, and I'm sure Joey Carbery doesn't want to be number 2, but actually what he wants in 2 years' time when the World Cup comes around, he wants Joey Carbery to be saying, I'm number 1, I'm in the form of my life, I'm putting the pressure on. And I know Johnny Sexton is a good step ahead at the moment, but likewise with Jack Carty, that actually it's not a good thing for anybody, mentally, the players, anybody, if they're thinking about, can I be the number 2?
Yeah, but listen, you think back at this Irish out half position. You think back to Eric Elwood and David Humphreys pushing him, taking that 10 jersey off him. Then, of course, you had David Humphreys, who was playing incredibly well. And Declan Kidney gave Ronan O'Gara that opportunity. And Ronan O'Gara didn't need a second opportunity. When he got in, he took his chance and made it his own. And then, of course, Johnny Sexton came in after that. So we need, for this position, you have to have somebody who is knocking down the door to try and get in there. Unfortunately, the 10s are not doing that at the minute. You have Ross Byrne in Leinster, Harry Byrne in Leinster. Like, they train with Johnny week in, week out, but Johnny still gets picked ahead of him. So you can see how far ahead he is. But I think as well, it does take a coach giving these guys an opportunity as well. Like, I think back to Humph and Ron O'Gara. Like, David Humphreys was playing really well at the time, but Declan Kidney saw Ron O'Gara as the potential successor and gave him opportunities. And I think from Andy Farrell's point of view, he's going to have to start giving Joey opportunities, or whoever opportunities, because if you don't get a chance, how can you take Johnny's place? You know, like, it's all good and well saying that in training, but in the matches where it really counts. So a huge chance for Joey Carbery. He wasn't handed it by Andy Farrell, but, you know, when you get their opportunities, you got to take them.
Fiona, I think a lot of us are like Tommy when we look at the French and say, isn't it great to see them back and playing attractive rugby and been a real force again, except when we're 2 days away from playing this French side. But Ron O'Gara touched on it this morning, that there is now expectation. There is an expectation in France around this group of players that are coming through. And that brings a lot of pressure as well. And I wonder, is that an area Ireland can look to capitalise on, particularly with, say, discipline in this French side? And it was something they touched on after the game, the amount of penalties they gave away against Italy compared to Ireland, who had, I don't know if it's ever happened before, where Ireland went through a first half, I think, and didn't give away a single penalty.
That was incredible.
That actually Ireland, it seems, are in such a strong place mentally with their discipline, and France, it seems, are in a slightly different place. That I know there's the difference in the size of the packs and all that, but that there is a way that Ireland can get at this French side, and if they can get at them early and get a little bit of ill discipline creeping in, that's where an opportunity presents itself.
Always with French teams is that ill discipline. If you can get them into that area, they become frustrated. You know, it's in the French personality. You know, it's there, and it's definitely something I think Ireland will be trying to tap on. I know the France have obviously looked at it after their own game. They did 14 penalties. They weren't happy with that count. But I think as Tommy said earlier, you know, when the French start putting it back, and we hear about Johnny Sexton in the media and this and that, and they start talking about other ex-coaches, that's when I think, you know, the French are under pressure, and it's all on them. They're at home. You know, people spoke before. We all seen the French years ago, and you knew it was a completely different side that would come away from home, but they were always excellent at home. Now France are a team that are playing brilliantly across the board. So there is massive pressure on them. They haven't won a Six Nations in a long time. The fans are going to be out in force, but Ireland aren't overly confident. I think we're playing with confidence, but we're not talking confident. I think it's going to be we've picked our team. We're ready. Everyone looks like their ability to get on the ball is massive. And I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on France, and it's that area of discipline where Ireland will definitely be looking at it, and definitely around the breakdown and scrum time.
Ty Furlong was out in front of the media this week, Fiona, and he was talking about the many videos that are going around after every game of his skill set, and playing it down and saying, listen, I've been playing rugby since I was 4 years of age. I can pass the ball a metre. Maybe there shouldn't be a highlights reel made out of this, but I think everyone is incredibly excited about what Ty Furlong, that entire front row, can do with ball in hand as well. And if we are talking about them as potentially the best front row in world rugby, there's nowhere better to cement that reputation than in the Stade de France against the size of that French front row. Would you have any concerns about them being able to hold up their side of the bargain this weekend?
Absolutely not. They're putting the shift in every week. I mean, you even see with Leinster, those guys playing in the Heineken Cup. They've formed a lovely bond. I mean, they're scrummaging. We've talked about Ty Furlong's silky smooth. You know, his little passing, beautiful to watch. But I think he's scrummaging. I think he also spoke in that interview about his first cap against, you know, he was absolutely annihilated in the scrum, and he probably had the skill set all his life, whereas he had to work really, really hard on that. And now we're considering him one of the best tight heads in the world. And I think game in, game out, these guys are performing. Porter was sneaking up behind him. He's switched over to loosehead. So I definitely don't think these guys are worried about any tags about being the best in the whole world as a front row. But I think they're going to go out there and show it, and they are doing it game in, game out. I think it's the age-old thing as well, Nathan, about the old prop. I think there was once I kicked a ball and they called me Ginger Messi for the rest of my life. So it's like you can't do anything. People drop dead as a prop if you have any sort of skill set other than running and trotting up that pitch.
Would you be worried, Fiona, though, with whenever you see the size of the French front row coming on? like we're going to see them guys come on at 50, 60 minutes. And these are big guys. You think of Bamba, Gross, huge men. And I think just from this, like there's no doubt about it, Porter, Kelleher, Furlong, world class, all three of them. You have the likes of Dan Sheehan, but it's going to be such a challenge. Can Cian Healy, at the age that he is, can he still perform up against this huge French front row? And of course, Finlay Bealham as well. Like, would that be a concern for you?
A slight concern with Bealham. I've seen him giving away a few, I've watched him with Connacht. There are times where he's given away stupid scrum penalties. But I think these guys are focused. This is probably one of the biggest games of their life. This is their chance. I know Bamba is absolutely massive and you're looking over and seeing these guys. But scrum-wise, I think they've developed a system. I've watched the height. I've seen Bealham. I've seen the lads come on, and there generally isn't that much of a difference in height and power when there's a changeover. Obviously, French is a massive test. We didn't see it against the All Blacks. This is it when you're scrummaging. That French front row, that, as they like to say in South Africa, that bomb squad to come on also in the front row for France is going to be, this is the test. This is where we'll see it. We've spoke about maybe there isn't the tight head on the bench that we'd like, but I think this is his chance to put his hand up now, Bealham, and say, look, I'm here. I've learned my trade and I'm getting better and better, and I want to be the main man here in France after Furlong.
It's hilarious. You look at the likes of Porter coming up against Antonio, 23 stone. And then he has Antonio coming on 22 stone after. I mean, what a challenge that's going to be.
Absolutely. Big boys. But you know what? if you get that height right, Tommy, there's no one can push you, and they just look really good and solid when I'm watching them.
I'd say to be able to push Tommy all right.
I don't think that'll be too hard. Yeah. Tell you what, imagine coming up against Antonio on the scrum. That is that's one area. No, thank you.
It is an Irish backline I'm sure you'd love to be a part of with the way that they're playing at the moment, Tommy. James Ryan was saying how they are all relishing the heads up style of rugby, but that Andy Farrell is warning against PlayStation rugby. Are they getting that balance right of picking their moments to play?
Absolutely. I think they are. I think that it has helped that they haven't played against a really fierce line speed yet. Certainly in the last 5-6 test matches they played, we haven't seen any team really get off the line against them. You look at Japan, you look at New Zealand, they're not known as a blitzing team. Argentina sometimes have done in the past, but we didn't see it from them. And Wales, it wasn't until the second half that we saw them really start to try and get up in Ireland's faces. So it's played really into Ireland's hands that, they're playing this type of rugby that they can play with that bit of freedom, but I'm definitely expecting France to come off the line and really just fill the field from the outside post to the touchline. And if Ireland can get beyond that outside post with the passes, there's going to be huge space for them there. But that's going to be the challenge. Can they do that? And I've no doubt the style of rugby that they're playing, with the handling of some of the forwards to be able to get the ball into Carbery's hands, Aki's hands, Ringrose hands. Those are the guys that can find the space. And that's for me as an outside back. That's where I wanted it. You see how the likes of Joey Carbery, like Andrew Conway, he's thriving with ball in hand. Just looks so dangerous. But that's all due to the big work and the good work from the guys inside.
Just to finish where we started then with Carbery's inclusion, Tommy, is Sean Edwards scrambling for the next couple of days then with a potential change to Irish game plan with Carbery coming in instead of Sexton?
No, the funny thing about Sean Edwards, he's a world-class coach, and you've seen how impressive he was in the past with Wasps, and then into Wales, how successful he was there, and then to go to France, where you would imagine with a North English accent, rugby league style that he has, a get up and smash him attitude with the French. I would have thought that do the whole buff and enough of that. But he seems to have really struck a nerve with them. That's been one thing that's really impressed me most out of this French side, that they have this cohesiveness. Their line speed, their defence has been excellent, and it's not a case of switching off if somebody misses a tackle. That's your own fault, which you've seen from French sides in the past. They're all helping each other out. And I think for Sean Edwards, it's a very simple style of defence he has. It's not complicated. It is get off the line, put the opposition under pressure and get in their faces and force them into make a mistake. So that's what I'm expecting to see this weekend, whether it's Johnny Sexton, Joey Carbery or whoever. Tadhg Furlong. Maybe he's number 3 out half.
Quite possibly. I think people have been proposing, why don't we just try it out? Would you have gone for a John Hayes or a Marcus Horn as number 3 out half at any stage, Tommy?
Well, that's what I had to deal with. You know, how am I meant to get the ball out wide whenever you got Stephen Ferris, who never passed the ball in his life, or Heaslip? Sure, listen, we were all struggling out wide in those days.
Yeah. What's your prediction, Tommy?
I think that it's going to be really tight. I think it's going to be. Listen, I think if Ireland go over there and give France a brilliant game and we lose, I don't think it's a bad thing. As long as we go over there and we show that we can front up to them. I mean, potentially the next time Ireland could play France in the Stade de France could be in the quarterfinal of the World Cup. So to be able to go over there and not be scared of beating them, I think is not a bad thing. So, like, they were really brilliant last weekend, but I'd be afraid that France just at home could be a little bit too much for them. So I'm going to go France by 3.
Fiona?
I'm going to go against Tommy here, the forever optimist. I'm going to say Ireland by 1, and I'd say they'll be up around the maybe 24-23 mark, around there.
Le drop. Jack Carty.
Jack
That's
Carty.
it.
You heard it first here. Tommy's going for the moral victory.
I'll take that.
Great stuff, Fiona Hayes. Tommy Bowe, enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Aidan.
Cheers, enjoy it.
Fiona.
The Six Nations Show on OTB Sports Radio.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team, we all belong to the team of us.
It's spinning. It's spinning.
Updates, analysis, and opinion across all OTB channels from start to finish.
I've never seen a team like Ireland before.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports Radio.